The first thing that we look at is the relationship between the angle side 1 and side 2. We notice that side 2 is indeed shorter than side 1. We've learned that in this particular case that can mean one of three things can happen. You could obtain 0 answers if that's just too short. You can obtain 1 answer if it hits perpendicularly, or you could obtain 2 answers if it's short enough to swing. Now, with each of these first two cases, they kind of reveal themselves as you go. So I'm going to just start working, not knowing exactly what to expect, but it will hopefully reveal itself. So I set the relationship up by cross multiply. And again, I'm not sure what to expect yet, but I get the sine of C is equal to the sine of 48 times 12, all divided by 10.5. This gives me an approximate decimal. Let me calculate that. Now the value comes out to 0.0849 or something close to that. Notice this is a normal relationship. If it was the 0 case, this would be kind of an error scenario, which it's not going to be. And if it's the case of 90, this would be a 1 ratio. So what happens here is as I calculate this, I'm going to get the measure of angle C, and it will be a normal value. So when I do the inverse of that answer, I get a real angle of 58.14. So this immediately tells me I am in the case where there are 2 possible answers. If it had been 0, I would have got an error in that stage. If it had been 1, that angle would have been 90. So I am in the world where there are going to be 2 answers. So the way I want to think about this is I'm going to kind of just work as if there was just 1 angle to start with. Let's finish our triangle, or 1 triangle, sorry. So I have an angle, I have another angle. I can find angle B, and that would be 180 minus the 58.14 minus the 48. So I get 73.86. And to finish this triangle off, I'm going to find little b, the side b. And so I do the sine of 73.86 is to b as the sine of 48 is to 10.5. And if I do that quickly, and I'm trying to speed it up, let me calculate that. And I get 13.57. So I've completed kind of one set of answers because I calculated it C and then B and then found little b. Now, remember, the whole idea is that there are 2 answers that could happen here. Instead of the triangle being drawn this way, at 48 degrees might be like this. And then the arm, instead of swinging out to form this shape, it might have swung in to form this shape. And that means this angle here is that swung in. Do you see the idea? Maybe let me draw kind of again the idea. So we have one triangle that looks like this, and the second one we might have swung the arm to close it. So we would still have A being 48. Yes, the measure of A is still 48. We would still have, we do not know angle C yet, but we do know C is 12. We still know that little a is 10.5. But what we do now know is that the measure of angle C is not 58.14 because that's what it looks like here. When it swings in, it would be 180 minus that 58.14 because that angle would be the same as this, and so what's left is right in there. So angle C happens to be 180 minus 58.14, which is 121.86. Now I can continue. I can find B. B would be 180 minus 121.86 minus 48. And as expected, it's a very small little angle up there. This is an obtuse angle of 121.86. This guy way up here is a tiny little angle of 10.14. And then the final stage would be to find B. The sine of 10.14 over B is equal to the sine of 48 over 10.5. And B in this triangle would be approximately almost 2.49. Now let's look. So there's all the information of the second triangle. So you have to kind of think of them in two groups. As you move along, knowing that it was going to be 0, 1, or 2, well, when we got angle C, we found out it wasn't an error. We found out that it wasn't 90, so it has to be the case of the swinging arm to create 2. So we ignore that there are 2, and we just solve the first one look like this. Then we have to say, well, in truth, there could be a second set of answers. So the key is that I took angle C, and angle C helped me to obtain the new angle C, and then I can proceed to find the rest of the information. It's kind of tricky, thus it's called the ambiguous case.